It is actually great to see something like this coming out from an individual like this. Look at that background. So they don't just use words just for the sake of using it. They think before they talk. And here, when you are getting this perspective, I'm like, that actually really goes in with all of these big news as well, right? They actually put in fear and then they go in because fear pushes the market down. They get a better price. They buy in. So right now, the narrative here is the end with the SEC lawsuit instead. It's actually the beginning of the end. So they are thinking like this is going to end very soon. And look at where it actually comes from. It's actually showing this article directly. So at the time when you're observing how things are changing inside the payment space, how the market is reacting, and what you're observing. Now, this is another important factor which is coming out in just 1 week, because right now this is from NASDAQ, right? They're actually looking for market news and what's impacting the market across the globe, right? They're looking at everything. And here they actually give you that idea of what the market and investor is focusing for this week. And then you're looking at like, okay, when is that happening? Now, this time, say 7 days, today's is 6, so that's like 13. Now, 13th is going to be a big day. Here, if you are looking at 13th and then looking at this one, you're like, okay, the CPI is coming on December the 13th. And then the rate hike is also going to be on the same day. So I'm like, okay, that's really interesting actually, right? So when you are looking at this, one most likely comes usually earlier in the morning, the other one comes by the eve. If that's the case, so we are waiting for something like the CPI. If it indicates it's lower, it's going to be really great for the rate hike as well. Because here, if you're observing the oil, we've talked about this from a very long time. We've been discussing it through this time around when we broke to the downside, right? And we made a double top here, went back down. Right now, we are breaking to the downside. Now, this is a weekly chart. We can easily say, okay, we are coming close to 65, 66 range. And if the momentum does not reduce, that means you are coming down. Now, there is something which is concerning in this too, like when the demand for oil goes down and the price goes down like this, there is something bad happening in the economy as well. So at that point, you would be most likely looking at the safe haven assets, right? Gold, silver, what's happening there. You try to understand the macro narrative from the dollar, gold, and the volatility index. So if you are focusing on VIX right now, it's slowly going back up from a support. What does that actually mean, right? How does this actually price into the market where it's already showing a lot of volatility here and there? Some of these coins are moving up, but majority is staying humble without much of a movement. What really is happening there? That's what we are going to break down now. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal, common guys learn how to become the next top 10%. So now if you're looking at Bitcoin to understand what the market shows us, there is actually a possibility that we may break through this short-term support and then this short-term pattern. So if that happens, now we are coming all the way back down, or you may wick a little bit down. But right now, breaking through this means breaking through 2 levels of support. So most likely you may go down. But at the same time, if you do not break this, it's also 2 layers of support with a moving average. So you may bounce. That's positive. If you bounce and go through this to the upside, it's great. But what matters is this time which we just talked about. We still have like 7 days for these 2 things to happen. And based on what we can see right now, the market is actually expecting the size of the rate hike, and they do believe that most likely it is going to be a 50 basis point one. So the majority actually think like it is going to be a 50 basis points. So the market is trying to price that in, but there is still possibility of some saying it can be still 75, but that's going to be completely based on the data which is coming out. Right now, you don't have super data coming out from the market showing it's going to be 75. Yeah, the job market is still strong, but it is slowly going down, which is a little bit of concern, right? So now you go back to the market and you're like, okay, in that 7 days, if we don't have any news, most likely we may get a small bounce and then come back down, right? Now that actually goes in. So if that is happening, then by the time 13th comes and you get some positive news, now you're starting to bounce and break through this resistance range, which is actually a good indication. Now you actually go in, say, look at the VIX, which is the volatility. So when you're looking at this, you can literally understand like, okay, this is your resistance range and you've been trending below that for some time. And right now, what's happening in the market is like the volatility is slowly increasing. So last time this happened, the volatility went up, you literally got something bad in the markets, something bad in the economy, a big crash. Now, you go back to look at 2018, 2015, all these times when the volatility increased, we actually got a stock market correction as well. So this is something which is on the page here. S&P is getting slowly rejected from this resistance and you do see some downside. Now, one thing positive which is evolving here is that if the price does not take down this level, right, if it actually holds on to this level, now it becomes a little bit different, meaning the price actually puts in one low here, another one here, and if it manage to put in one here and bounce, that will slowly turn the market into an area like, okay, it's now turning positive. It's turning inside this trend. It's trying to go into an accumulation stage, which at this point of time, when you are doing this macro run up, that may literally feel like a re-accumulation range. And that happens to be staying just above this previous level of resistance. So the market has a possibility it can drop a little bit first on the short term before it actually heads higher. So if that happens, it would be like in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we may have some volatility in which after 10 days, as we get these news and if the rate hikes is like 50 or lower, it's going to push the market to the upside. And on the same day, we also get to see what it is like for the CPI. Because if you look at this one, you can actually first look for PPI, the producers index, and say if they total spend expenditure reduced or the cost reduced, that's actually positive. They're not now putting $100 to make something which is worth $102. They're making, say, some profit margin there. So their cost go down. So automatically they reduce the cost which is being followed down into the customers. That will appear here on the CPI. We've been observing both of these in the last couple of CPI and PPI data. So that is going to be priced in here. Now, on the fundamental side of what we are talking about, here, when they actually give you the narrative of this is going to end soon, there is something behind that. Otherwise, they wouldn't actually come out and put this. Now, yes, we don't have any literal proof for that. This is personal opinion. But look at what's happening. Like one by one, these advertisements are not great. Anyway, now one by one, if you are looking at all of this, it's like, okay, they are not directly partnering with them, but they're using someone in that network and they're building something. So if you're coming here and looking at this guy is saying, okay, it's like a pet rock. I'm like, literally? So gold is also said as rock, pet rock, by Warren Buffett, who is like one of the best investors of all time. But if you look at governments, they hold a ton of it. If you look at different nations, they hold a ton of it. So it's not about who believes what, it's about what the market believes, right? That's what end up happening in the market. So you're coming here, you're coming down, looking at gold, and the gold price is showing you that it is moving back up, and the trend looks really good. It does not look any thing bad. You go up, you come back down, now you bounce back, you're coming back to that range. So now you are at a support. So if you're bouncing from here, you are creating a new trend, which actually looks really surprising to see. But if you are focused, you already know that is a possibility, or that at least was a big time possibility. Now that's a daily chart. So you zoom out and you come here, you look at gold and you're like, okay, this is trending up from a long time. It actually made in the bottom here, then got resisted here, which made a long accumulation range. So this accumulation range here, the price moved inside, broke higher. Great. Now that range is completely invalidated and you are going to the upside in search of a new zone where you are going to watch this thing. So you got this level of wick to the downside, the price went up. So you got the same here. Most likely you're going to go to the upside and hit this resistance. We'll have to see how the market goes into a FOMO or not so that you go higher. Now, this is gold. You're not literally going to see like, 5x, 10x kind of thing here. You're literally going to see a 50%, 60%, or even a maximum of 100% increase over time. But then you look at silver and it's like, okay, it still has a long way to go. And the way it actually consolidates inside this pattern, it kind of shows you if it breaks, there can be a retest and a bounce. And this has a long way to go, right? You got that wick here, which showed you, yeah, sellers are being rejected and rejected hard. Buyers are kicking them out and the price went up. Now it's being in the consolidation and you are going to see a continuation pattern coming in. We've seen this over the time. You do this, you consolidate, you break higher, you go up. But what's interesting is once you ride this one, the next time when you're doing that, it's way bigger than this. So if you follow that, next one you're looking at an all-time high for silver. Now, we know one thing, silver movement and a lot of crypto coins tend to ride higher correlations, which means we also will be observing a lot of coins moving up, and one of which is XRP. XRP tend to show higher correlation with silver market. So in short term, if this price fluctuation is coming down and bouncing, it's all good, great. But being technical, you can argue that yes, but right now you need to bounce from this support and then again reach the resistance. Until then, there is no nothing. You're still waiting, having patience, just waiting to see what happens, whether it takes the support to the downside or it breaks the resistance to the upside. So right now you're at the midpoint. You're literally waiting. You don't have anything big to do. Just it's waiting. Because in the market, it's kind of confused. The Bitcoin is trying to break through the $17,000 mark. Stocks are going down. Bitcoin did not actually drop much, which is a good thing. But right now, if you observe this on the macro side, there is no one, kind of neglecting the fact that it is below the support and it is just retesting. It can get rejected and further go lower. Right, first tests this range, because on a short term, we just saw that the fact that it is inside a pattern which itself is bearish means it can run lower. It hit that resistance 3 times, so it's kind of valid, and right now you're here. So if you break this, first thing you're looking at is the max probability, say something around 6%, and plotting that, saying, okay, yeah, the price can literally come back to this range, and if panic enters, it can even wick lower, which will then signal, okay, now we actually got a great bottom where sellers tried to push through to the downside, but buyers are back in high, right? So now on a weekly chart, which is the biggest issue right now, your momentum in Bitcoin is this. You had a long candle to the downside, which has not yet been erased. So if for the market to actually come back strong, it needs to break through this range. So in next 1 week, we are literally sitting here observing how the market actually works and how the macroeconomics play inside this. So if it is able to break through this one, that's going to be a great news, and it will signal a next 3 to 6 months of good time for those who held on to crypto. But on a short time, you may actually see this retesting this range. So it's not that 100% bullish narrative on the short term. Yeah, you may go up, but you do have short-term bearish patterns. So the same happens to be in XRP. You go look at the macro, you're on a weekly and you're like, okay, this is looking fine. We have actually seen something like this with the price action making a resistance, then going in for a support. That all is looking good. Now you need to actually bounce through this. You observe this. You go up, hit this level, come back down, and slowly round back up and blow that. This was the SEC. Otherwise, we would have most likely stayed about this and bounced. So here, the possibility is still there. You can drop a little bit and go test this range. Now, we are just talking until that happens, but this is the biggest probability in the market because the RSI did not invalidate the breakout and it did retest and bounce, which shows there is enough strength. Now, what we are waiting to actually see happen is the MACD moving into the positive zone. For some of these assets which are moving here, we observe that they got that. The MACD is there, RSI is breaking higher. You're getting some of these bullish signals, but the volume is not right up to that point. You're not observing a lot of people following through that breakout, so you will get a continuation pattern. But in some assets, say it was like 500,000 in volume, now it is close to like 4x that volume. So yes, for some of these assets, it's happening. And if you are eager to look at that and understand that, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below where we discuss through this. And right now we are going through a session from like last 5 days trying to cover as many assets as possible to look at what's happening with this asset. If it's breaking lower through a major support, that's a concern. If not, that's okay, right? It's bouncing, it's good. So guys, if you received value for your time, please do hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have another 3 to 5 more minutes, please do visit this channel of mine and take a video and watch it. It's just 3 to 5 minutes if you have that time. That's it, guys. I'll meet you on the next video. Bye-bye.